Giants like Apple and Google have recently grabbed headlines for personalizing AI for users. But others are making advances in AI that have an impact on a bigger scale: cities. And for more on the rise of this smart technologies in city planning, I'm joined by Ray Wang. He's the founder and CEO of Constellation Research. Always great to see you, Ray. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, Elaine, how are you?
Good. So how does smart tech improve the structure or framework of a city?
Yeah, it's really important. This is a $1 trillion market by 2027, and it's the sensors, it's the data collection, and that's what's being used to figure out how to improve your quality of life. And this is sustainability, it's the efficiency of a city, it's also where you plan and place buildings and do city planning. And this happens in a whole bunch of ways, right? What do you think about traffic flows? What services are distributed? How do you handle emergency management? This is all part of that quality of life. And there was a belief, probably up until about last year, where cities were going to be the majority of our population centers, and 2/3 of all the population was going to live in cities. And that's where everybody wanted to figure out, how do you make the city more efficient? And what can you do to actually support a greater number of people in a smaller number of areas? Now, we're also seeing it happen in the reverse, as we're seeing people flee cities and get to suburban environments and rural environments, because you're thinking about autonomous vehicles, how traffic flows are going to work, especially as you traverse out into less dense environments. So both are actually happening, which makes this a very dynamic market.
So, Ray, I know that you're a world traveler. You've been everywhere. You're in Tokyo right now. A lot of this is aspirational and looking into the future. But based on what you've seen, what you're hearing, what are some examples of smart cities on the way? Where are you seeing it right now?
Yeah, and Tokyo is a great example. We've got an aging population here in Tokyo, and what's going to happen is you're going to require much more automation and assistance that's going to be needed to guide people to the right area, to do the right level of urban planning. Now, some of the top smart cities in the world are typically in Europe: Zurich, Oslo, Canberra in Australia, Geneva, Singapore, Copenhagen, Lausanne, Switzerland, London, Helsinki, and Abu Dhabi. These are typically the top smart cities because what they've done is they've put a sensor infrastructure, which means they're using the ability, as Mark New was showing earlier, of putting these sensors to identify, hey, where's the traffic flow? Do we need to put another grocery store in this food desert area? Would this be an area where we should place another hospital? What can we do to improve traffic flow here at this intersection? How do we support multi-modes of transportation? And those are the cities that are trying to figure out how to actually be more energy efficient, more water efficient, and of course, reduce their carbon footprint.
Yeah, a lot of this, technology and infrastructure involved. How expensive could this be? I mean, for cities who have to work on budgets, is there a lot of upfront cost, and does it pay off in the end? Is it cost effective down the road?
It should be cost effective, but it is also expensive to put this technology. You're looking at automation, Internet of Things, the network infrastructure, what you actually have to do to put all these sensors in place. But let's take, for example, parking meters. That's a great one. Trying to be able to find parking, trying to make sure you manage parking flows. In the old days, we put in quarters. Today, we see the ability to do smart parking. And by doing that, and putting metering technology in place, you can figure out that on a Saturday at 7 in the morning, probably could be free. A Saturday at 5 p.m. at night, well, maybe it starts to get busy. You might charge $2 an hour, $8 an hour, $10 an hour, and you can create dynamic pricing. And that's how you recoup some of that cost. In other words, you can also look at energy management. Can you defer putting a brand new power plant? If you actually manage energy much more effectively, you might not have to actually spend that capital to actually build a power plant. You can use that to actually build a senior center or actually build a new school. And so it's going to help cities figure out their planning and budgeting, especially when they look at capital improvement projects over the next decade.
What about policing, Ray? We know that London has long been known for the cameras that are all over the city. Are there ways smart tech can improve city safety?
Yeah, there definitely is. And you have to find the fine balance between being a big brother state and actually helping to prevent crime. And so we're seeing this improve policing and prediction in communities by figuring out what areas are more susceptible to crime. What can you do to improve lighting for safety? How do you identify traffic flows? For example, even prevent accidents. So you can do that with sensors, and you can do that to actually plot where more crimes are taking place, so that you can also figure out where you actually bring patrols or communities policing efforts into place.
You mentioned sustainability just a moment ago. Of course, we're seeing Miami, for example, right now, a lot of flooding down there, a lot of higher impact weather events. Can smart city tech help the environment in any way?
It definitely can, Elaine. And I think what you're going to see is that if you look at insurance mapping, if you look at what people are doing in terms of drones to map topographies, it can help prevent areas around floods, crisis management. So let's say there's a flood in an area. What would you do to reroute traffic? What would you do to actually bring emergency services? And we will get to a point where we can actually do preventative situational awareness so that when you see a disaster occur or you can plan for disaster, you know what assets to put into place. Where do generators go? Where do you actually have to protect the water sources in an emergency? And of course, what you actually need to protect the safety of individuals and property in that area.
You're the expert. You are everywhere, Ray. Thank you so much for joining us from Tokyo.
Thanks, Elaine.